Thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak here today. I'm very honored that you thought of me, and I'm very happy to give you some of our experiences from the Nordic region. I know that one should be careful with being sarcastic when giving presentations in a foreign country in a foreign language, but now you're warned. Of course, Denmark and Brazil has a lot in common. We're both small countries with cold weather, small population, a monarchy, but I'm happy that you think that you can still learn a lot from us. I realize that the number of people working in the creative industries we heard yesterday evening from Sabrai is calculated 5 million people. It's the same as the total population of Denmark. We do have some similarities. We have a great love of football. We beat the Germans in '92. The same time as we said no to the Maastricht Treaty. So we have the philosophy, if you can't join them, beat them. Now, let me finish with the sarcasms and go into conquering the international market. How do you conquer an international market, and what are some of the experiences from a small country like Denmark and some of the experiences from other European countries and Nordic countries? First of all, I think you should be aware when we are talking about the creative industries that it would be a mistake if you only talk about the creative industries. You need to also talk about one of the things that we work a lot on in Denmark and also in many other countries, the way the creative industries can help the rest of the economy. How design can help transportation and pharmaceutical and the rest of the old economy transferring into the new creative economy. So also when we talk about statistics, it's true, it's interesting to know that it's 5 million people, but I think it will be in the future much more interesting to know how much do creative competences, people as designers and storytellers, etc., how can they help the rest of the economy to grow, to become competitive, but also to find solutions to problems such as we heard yesterday with environment, social problems, etc., how we can actually use the competences in the creative industries to spill over, as it's often called, or cross-sectoral innovation is something that's very important. In Denmark, we have calculated that it's about 12% of the value added to the economy that comes from the creative industries. So that's design and music and fashion and computer games and movies. But on the other hand, we also have to realize that, for example, when a Danish bank, tries to reach a younger audience and try to teach the younger audience to save money, to be careful with a credit card, maybe the best thing to do is to create a computer game that actually will explain that to the young people. So you use the creative competences of animation, of computer games, of storytelling, to reach a young audience and to make them understand personal finances. So in that sense, the spillover is rather important. The EU has made a lot of research on this as well, and we have to remember that there are a lot of designers and people working with storytelling and architects, etc., in the regular, traditional industries. And they are spreading and they are growing in the rest of the economy. I have to give you now some examples. I'll give you several examples of conquering markets. To go from Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark, to Oslo, the capital of Norway, you can take a boat, or you can fly, or you can drive. It's faster and cheaper to fly and to drive. Why would you take the boat? Lots of people take the boat, but from a rational point of view, it doesn't make any sense. You should fly or you should drive. You can fly in 1 hour, drive in 6. The boat takes a whole night. But many people does it. And you would probably say, okay, ferries, they're in the transportation sector. That's a transportation company, of course. But actually, they have realized they're not in transportation. people are taking the boat for different reasons, because you can do all kinds of activities on the boat. You can do rappelling on the side, you have chocolate festivals, they have artists come and play. But to do that, they actually had to hire a company to stage it, to make this whole thing happen. That's what they had to work on first. Another one is the American company Grillery. The American company called Weber has about 30% market share in the United States. 30% is quite good. In the Nordic region, it's close to 80%. So in the Nordic, in Scandinavia, Weber has a very, very high market share. And one of the reasons is that Weber said, we're not selling the grill. We're not selling the thing that you can drop on your foot. We're selling the experience. We're selling actually the fact that you're standing there grilling, you're talking. Usually it's the men that grill the steaks, and you're taking a beer and you're kicking some wheels and stuff. It's the whole common feeling of grilling. So then you shouldn't be doing this, but you should actually be opening restaurants where people can grill their own food at Weber grills. And that's one of the ways they've been looking at it. We're selling grilling experiences, the co-creation experiences together with others, and that makes them that helps Weber go under the skin and in the hearts of people, although it's simply an industrial product like a grill. So, just to reiterate what we're talking about, some of them are small, some of them are big, and I think also what we haven't heard so much about is how important the cultural aspect of the creative industries are. You probably heard it before. I'll tell you again. Cirque du Soleil that you see at the bottom, the first 10 years it was a cultural project that received money from an artistic point of view. And now it's $1.2 billion worth. Only Canadian dollars, but still. So here you can see that the artistic potential of something does not necessarily say that it doesn't have a commercial potential as well. Sometimes they go hand in hand, sometimes they don't. Just a couple of hints also on some of the large Danish creative industries that you may have heard of. Lego, hopefully, Bang & Olufsen, Georg Jensen. And then you've seen, let's see if I can point, Noma. Noma is nominated for, I think it's the third year in a row, or is it just the second? I can't remember. I haven't been there because it's impossible to get in. The best restaurant in the world. But maybe you haven't heard that we also have the best cook in the world in Denmark. The best chef. And you probably think that the best chef is working at the best restaurant, right? But that's not so. The best chef in the world, who happens to be Danish, has his own restaurant. So one of my points is, that we also heard yesterday, be democratic about it. Don't necessarily only look for one star and go for that one, but spread it out. And I think that's very much in the philosophy of the Nordic Scandinavian model, that the best chef is not employed at the best restaurant, but we can actually spread that out. TV series. We were walking around at Inotim yesterday, a couple of days ago. It was fantastic, NVU. And we're talking about how Brazilian TV series has conquered the world. And of course I said, oh really? I haven't seen a single one. And then I started, of course, telling him about all the Danish TV series that have conquered the world, that have won Emmys, and now recently we also won an Oscar for the best foreign movie. And we've been quite good at telling things. And it's not just to stand here and to be proud of that, what we do in TV series, but one of my other points, other than being democratic, is also find your true competences. And you probably heard about Hans Christian Andersen, the storyteller. Danes are good storytellers. We tell good stories, and we tell good stories about real people in real life situations. And that's why Borgen, which is about a government situation, a real, true female prime minister and her problems struggling in the government and at home, they have been very successful. We are good at that. We are good at that and not all the extras, artificial, and etc. We're good at the basics. People that are real people and that struggle. And that's what we should focus on in many of our works. That's how we have conquered the world in the field of movies and TV series. In the field of design, I went to the Biennale yesterday. It was fantastic. I hope you all have the possibility to go and see the exhibition. Really impressive work. And we came outside, and there's a cafe. And the cafe is quite proud of that they have some Arne Jacobsen furniture. But I'm sorry to say, I don't think they're real. They're real chairs for sure, but they're not Arne Jacobsen. Arne Jacobsen was a great architect and designer from Denmark. He created a lot of different products, among some well-known chairs. Fritz Hansen is a company that had actually taken over the license. He's dead now, Arne Jacobsen, and they are distributing his chairs. So what do you do now? You have this iconic product that you cannot really touch because the designer is dead. What happened was that the owner of Fritz Hansen, or the manager of Fritz Hansen, he had dinner with a famous Danish artist called Tal-R, T-A-L-R, and he was a great collector of fabrics, of the tissue. And they created then 50 different egg chairs that were patchworks, completely new. All spent a year, they are all named after Freudian terms, and suddenly when those 50 chairs were out, everyone started calling from Japan and from the United States, maybe also from Brazil, and wanting to buy some of these chairs. But hey, it's one piece of art. It's one piece. You cannot just buy one chair. So actually one way of conquering a market is work with an artist, make something like this that is inaccessible. You cannot buy that one chair. You can come and see them when they're out on exhibition around the world. They travel around the world together like a little family. But they have actually transcended being a design product into being an artistic, into being a design art, I would say. Another good thing to do, I can recommend, is get a royal family. They are actually not that expensive. And if you do, like in Denmark, that you make sure that they don't take drugs, that they go to good schools, and they marry clever, beautiful, ambitious, professional women, then you have actually a very good investment. You invest a little money in this family, and they go out and they travel around the world. They even been to Belo Horizonte, and when they travel around, they open doors, and if they sit in an Arne Jacobsen chairs, then that will increase the sales. So that's something I also can recommend. Another way we have also tried to conquer international markets is trying to take something of ourselves. Strangely enough, most Chinese people have heard about The Little Mermaid, The Ugly Duckling, etc., Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales. They're part of the curriculum. So imagine you have all Chinese people know about The Little Mermaid. Then you have the expo in Shanghai. What are you going to do? Also, if you think The Little Mermaid, does that represent who we are? Does that reflect Danish mentality and how progressive we are and equal rights and all those? Not really, but we did a pavilion, and after long debate in the parliament, they took The Little Mermaid, transported her to Shanghai, put her down in the Danish pavilion. That was nice, a nice pavilion. Put up a TV screen where she used to be in the harbor of Copenhagen, that was transmitting pictures from Shanghai directly, so the Danes and the tourists could still see her. It was a fantastic signal, and it was one of the most visited pavilions during the Shanghai Expo because of this little trick. Of course, the extreme right in Denmark, the very nationalistic, said, oh, she should never leave Denmark. I'm glad they did. She's back in play. She's doing fine. She didn't lose her head or her arms or anything. She has done that in the past. And imagine if America, next time there was an expo in China, took the Liberty Bell from that is in Philadelphia, took it to China and had it there. Wouldn't that be a signal to show the Chinese? So look for something that might be very, very simple. I was so lucky to accompany the Crown Princess and Crown Prince to Australia in November last year. And Denmark came, again, this little country coming to Australia, to Sydney and Melbourne, and trying to show that we are fantastic. That's what you do when you make these trade delegations. And the whole summit was called State of Green, Think Denmark, so that when the Australians would think about windmills, about renewable energy, they should, think Denmark. But that can be really difficult to make people think about certain things. So what we did was we contracted some artists that instead of putting flowers at the middle of the tables, they put conversation pieces that all refer, these are little art products that refer to State of Green. And here you suddenly have all these business people sitting around this table and they're going, what the hell is that? And starting conversations that were actually, from an unsecure point of view, both of them or all of them, and starting to open up and talk about State of Green, Think Denmark. Also up on the screens they had some video projections that were all also made by artists on these themes. So you can actually use artists, use creative competences to get into the heart and under the skin of people. Can you see who this is? After Australia, I went to Vietnam, and I went to a place where Denmark was having an exhibition. And I met this artist called Peter Ravn, and we were looking through some glass doors, and up in the back of this room, that painting was hanging. And the artist, the painter said, can you see who that is? And I was going, I don't know. Who is that? And then I looked, is it Putin? And it was. He had painted a painting called Queen of Russia that was actually as a comment to the fact that it was before Putin got re-elected, that if Putin got re-elected, then he would be serving longer than many Tsars and Tsarinas in Russia, and also because of the homophobic laws that were being passed in many cities around Russia. So the Vietnamese communist country didn't like to offend Putin, so it was removed. They didn't want to show it at the exhibition. I thought that was a good story, so of course I said to all the press people I knew, come and look, this is a good piece. So sometimes provoking is also a way to get attention. Unfortunately, they said the Danish ambassador came over and said, we have to stop the media because otherwise we will have all the artists go to jail. All the Vietnamese will go to jail and all the Danish will be sent home. So we shouldn't have that mentioned at all. So actually the whole promotion came a month later in December when everyone had gone home and was safe. And it's inspired by that actually there was a Danish princess who got married into the Tsar family, and she was the mother of Tsar Nikolai that was later killed. And of course there's this inspiration there. So provocation might also be a way to do it. The story about Anne Black is a ceramist. A ceramist who is quite good at doing what she does. She married a guy who is an economist who said, is that all you're going to do? Am I going to be the one earning all the money? and you're going to be at home doing your little pottery, I don't think that's a good deal, he said. So he traveled around to 15 different countries in the world and ended up in a factory outside Hanoi in Vietnam, where they have the skills and the possibility to hand produce in the same way as Anne Black is doing her potteries. So this story is not only about scalability, how if you work with crafts, you might actually find some people somewhere else in the world that have the same pride, because that's important, in making a good product and the skills to do it. But it's also a story about you need sometimes to have someone with some creative competences and someone with some business competences and have them merge together. They're still married. They fight a lot, I heard, from the husband. But this symbiosis of someone with business skills and someone with creative skills has created a company that is doing extremely well. And I think that's also something you should take into consideration when you go abroad. I'm just going to talk about that story over there. These are toilet seats that were reproduced or produced in Denmark. And the trick about them, I will whisper it to you, is that people get tired of them, so they buy new ones. White toilet seats, you keep forever. Toilet seats like this, you change. So suddenly a product that you wanted, maybe it's not a good philosophy. The good thing is that this one, they put on the toilet seat when Madonna visited Copenhagen. And she got so fond of it that she took the toilet seat with her from the concert hall back to the United States. So, and if nothing else, it's a good story to tell if you're trying to sell toilet seats, that Madonna stole it. Reaching the end here. So I think for you to conquer international markets and also to create this creative house that you want, be careful not to turn too much inwards. Open up and realize that people with creative competences have the competences that will bring the whole economy into the next centuries. We have had a very, very interesting fund where we funded projects where a steel company and someone working with theater would work on product development, new products. We've had these, so we had a company that had a challenge that was growth related. We had a creative company or artist that had some solutions. They made a project. They got growth. And we, the state, got more clever. We knew what to do next time. We also made some really interesting analysis. We asked thousands of Danish creative companies and thousands of normal, traditional companies. And we realized something. First of all, we realized that there is something called the creative industries. Because many of you will say, oh, design has nothing to do with architecture, has nothing to do with movie making, has nothing to do with animation, has nothing to do with etc., that they're very different. And it's true, it's very different if you're an architect or if you're working with textiles. That's true. But we realize that you have much more in common as challenges and as business models and what will carry you forward. That's very much more in common. You have a lot in common, more in common than for example, the transportation sector has or the pharmaceutical sector has. You are a sector, the creative industries. And also, you do actually want to earn money. A lot of creatives will be met with this, well, you just do it for the fun. Because you put your heart and your soul into it. But you do actually want to be seen, sold, heard, experienced. This is very interesting. The creative industries in Denmark are much more internationally oriented than the rest of the economy. So the Danish fashion, it's interesting, the Danish fashion industries export for as much as the Danish agricultural sector owns the banks. So actually, they're very much oriented towards the rest of the world, and I think that your creative industry should be as well. IPR, not surprising, is often more crucial for the business than the rest of the economy. And financing is difficult for all, but it's more difficult if you're a creative person, because you don't necessarily, it's not like selling milk. You know what milk is, and if you want to find someone to finance a new milk farm, then you can tell them what it is and show them a business model. But if you're going into the studio and say, I will make a great record, you don't know if you come out a year later if this record will sell well, even if your last record sold well. So some would say it's more risky business. It's not necessarily so, and that's why. So what is needed? Reaching the end here. You need to connect. You need to connect with other industries. If you're in the music business, realize that music is used in movies, in computer games, in fashion shows. Music is also used, hey, why don't we all in the break all call Sabrai? Let's call Sabrai and see what do we hear when we're put on hold. Do we hear something pleasant that we want to continue listening to? That will make us wait for the operator to help connect us? Or are we just being pushed away from Sabrai when we call Sabrai? So when you work with music and sounds, you realize maybe that your competences can be used also for Sabrai. Let's give them all a call in the break. So connections between different creative sectors and with the rest of the world is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult and extremely important, because often sectors will turn towards themselves. Have you ever talked to designers, textile designers, and graphic designers? And no, we're different. We're from different worlds, planets, you know. Or musicians, rock, classical versus rock music. To-do list. I don't think I have time to go through all of them, but we already talked about some of them. How do you evaluate your creative competences, especially in foreign countries? And this one, highlight them. Put them on the spot. Show them. Show the rest of the world what they can do. I am also standing here because I'm the president of the European Creative Industries Alliance, and also working on something called Crea Nord, which is the Nordic region. It's about 25 million people, the 11th biggest economy in the world if we put all the Nordic countries together. It's not to brag, but it's to say that both in Denmark and in the Nordic region and in Europe, we're doing the same as you do in Brazil. We're scratching our heads and thinking, what can we do? What can we do policy-wise? What should politicians do? What kind of instruments can we use to help the creative entrepreneur, to maybe make financing easier, to protect IPR, or maybe to let go of IPR? If you have something valuable, intangible, valuable, maybe you can make it even more valuable by letting it go, rather than keeping it to yourself. We have a Creative Business Cup. I'm looking forward to see the Brazilian contestant. It's almost like the Eurovision Song Contest, hopefully with on a different level. That's actually very interesting to study. You should do that one day. If you're interested in cultural differences, study the song contest, because you have every country have 3 minutes to present the best they can and try and win and see what actually goes through. Here I'm at my end. I hope this gave you an insight in. I just want to make sure that I covered everything pretty much. There are some, I hope you got an idea of some of the possibilities and also of some of the challenges. One of the great challenges that you are facing now, that we are facing in Denmark, is, for one, that we're talking about so many different sectors. that have something in common. At the same time, they're also doing something for all the other sectors and the rest of the economy. So that makes it, where should we start? Should we just focus on this, or should we focus on that? That's one challenge. Another challenge is that it's going to be both the Department of Trade, these are trade issues, it's about innovation, it's about labor market, how is the labor market? It's about education. Do you create enough Brazilians with the right creative skills? Do you have good enough schools that create people that have the right? So it's, you have the sectors that are spread and not necessarily unified, and then you also have these policy issues that fall in between lots of different governmental departments, and that might also, trust me, pose a lot of challenges. Thanks a lot.